Welcome to another episode of the Sound 228 magazine. My name is Lisa Wills, and I am here to talk to you for the October issue of our Ladies' Night Spotlight. She just dropped her debut album a few weeks ago, back in August. It's titled Mortal. I've got Daedric. Hi.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you
All
for
right.
having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much for your time this evening. I really appreciate it. You're in Texas, correct?
Yes, I'm in Texas.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And we are going to use your government name on this broadcast. So it's nice to meet you, Kristen.
Nice to meet you as well.
um, Mortal dropped a few weeks ago, debut album. It is filled with such tremendous vocal ability. And there's a lot of heavy elements, and there's also a lot of softer elements as well, and some electronic elements. What has the response been? And what have you heard from your fan base in response to the release?
Yeah, so I was actually overwhelmed with how positive the reception was. I was expecting some dissent and some people saying, "Oh man, this song really was off, the wall for me in a bad way," or "I didn't really vibe with this one," and there's, maybe a couple tracks they would like. But just across the board, everyone's really had positive things to say. I haven't gotten too much, negative feedback at all. There's been a few like criticisms, but overall, it's just been so nice. And all of the fans that have engaged with me on social media have been just the best about, letting me know their favorite songs and the things they love the most and things they want to hear more of. And I'm actually shocked, honestly.
I'm not. I'm not shocked at all. When I first heard, I believe the first single was "Wretched," correct?
Yes.
Yeah. When I heard that for the first time, and I was looking, and I was like, "Who on earth is this artist? Whose voice is this? How come I don't know who this person is?" And I remember playing it on my show, and the feedback that I got from it was the same. Who is this? Where did she come from? And why do we not have anything else from her? And I'm like, well, I don't know. We're
Did
gonna
you?
have to find out together, aren't we? The story's
Yeah.
just starting to be told. But you only started that story not too long ago. It was just last year, correct?
Yes, technically. So there's a few dates in there. We formed the project end of 2020, started recording around that time. And Wretched was technically wrapped up by January of 21, and we shot the music video that March. So Wretched was done, but we didn't release it until August of 21. So it's been about 2 years since then and about a foot of hair. If you remember, my hair was really short in that one.
It was very,
But
very short, yeah.
it feels both like a long, long time ago, but also feels like yesterday when we just released that song and wrote it. When I listen back and I watch the video, I'm like, wow, that was forever ago, but also not.
Well, and what has changed? Did anything change in terms of the tracks from the release of Wretched? Did you already have the whole album in the bag, or were you still working on things?
Actually, when we wrote Wretched, it was a pitch to the label Fixed because Jeff had approached us and said, "Hey, I think you're going to be perfect for the label that I'm on already. There's a hole in the industry for this kind of music." And so we wrote the track and we just had the one track. And when we pitched it to them, they asked, "Do you have anything else?" And we had a couple very, very rough demos. We had a super rough version of Titan out that honestly, if it was out now, it would be terrible because there was like some rap elements that I was not vibing with, which is very interesting to say. And we had started on the demo version of Nascent, which is that super soft ballad that's in the middle of the album. And so we had those rough demos kind of sketched out. And it wasn't until after the release of Wretched that we really started to dive in and develop more of the songs. So then we worked on Sepulcher, and it was almost like we were learning our own sound and our own branding while we were going. So we had Wretched. We realized, okay, this is what people do like. But then the label had heard my screams from my other project, Aesop, and they were like, "Hey, this would be cool to try to incorporate." And at first we were a little bit hesitant because we thought, oh, people want to hear synth wave pop, some dark pop stuff, but we were a little bit shy about throwing in the screams and kind of keeping or getting it off track. But it worked out really well to where we were able to hone in on both the synth electronic side and the brutal, metalcore and screaming stuff. And I feel like it all just ended up gelling in a really great way. We were learning, but also developing and innovating, and just everything just came out in a great way. And it still surprises me because sometimes I listen back and I think, at that time that we were writing or tracking those things, we had no idea what was in store. And hearing it all together, it somehow just works.
Is it a relief for you to finally have it out?
Yes, more of like I was just so excited to share it. I've always believed in the music since we started it. I was just so happy to do something like this that I was truly passionate about and put myself into it. And as we wrote this album, so many things were going on in my personal life and with the music and the learning about myself and learning to put my entire being into the music, that it feels like one big diary, like word vomit, song vomit, but in a good way, not in a like I need to get off my chest. It was more of like I want to share who I am and the things that I love with the world, and finding out how excited other people were about, Elder Scrolls and about the music itself just really pushed it even harder for me and made it way more exciting than I ever thought it could be.
Who else is with you in the band? You mentioned another person. I also read in your bio that there was two people, I believe, that you were involved with in this production. Are the three of you Daedric, or is it just you?
So that's a complicated question. Technically, we are a project where I'm the vocalist and frontman and face of the project. And I have two producers, Clay and Jeff, and they work on the instrumentation and the mixing, and they do a lot of behind the scenes stuff. And they decided early on that we wanted to market it as a single like solo project, but then have all of these people, from the label to the producers and all these other engineers that are involved, but I would still stay as the face of it, just to keep it easy to market and for it to make sense for most people.
Okay. So is that sort of like almost, well, like maybe Ghost or Sleep Token, where there's that one person who's the face of everything, and you're not really sure who's playing the instruments or who's behind the scenes, but you know who's the face of it. Would it be
Yeah,
sort of similar?
yeah, you could say it's similar. Whenever Jeff talked about it, he would throw names out like Billie Eilish, because they have entire bands up there on stage, but they aren't recognized players. They're just people that fill in for the tour. And that's what we decided early on was the best move was, not including all these other band members who will have something to say and have too much input and slow the progress of the project. We wanted to keep it very, very dialed in so that we three were making all the decisions and bouncing that back with a label and just keeping it more straightforward.
Okay. Well, you three have totally made quite a splash. You have been a solo project, well, this project for a very, very short time, but you've amassed an incredible following. You have over 132 something thousand listeners, followers over on Spotify
Yeah, yeah, it's
before your
pretty
first album.
it's pretty crazy. I sometimes I look at all the countries and the cities and I'm like, wow, all these people are like they know about me, and that's so wild. But man, I'm just happy that people relate with it and that they listen to it. I couldn't ask for anything else.
Well, you're also doing a fantastic job on your social media. I follow you everywhere, and I love how I you're so connected with your fan base. I love how you're doing, the takes for the songs on the album. You're doing them. You're posting them to your TikTok. You're sharing them to Instagram. You're putting them everywhere, and then you're responding to comments. I love that. I applaud you for that because without doing that, you have no way to even it's the only way right now that you can connect with your fan base, number one. Number two, it's an easier way for the fans to understand the music and be able to have an opportunity to speak with you, even if it's just through an emoticon or something like that, to get a reaction and feel something from you when they haven't been able to see you live yet.
Yeah,
So well done. There's a
thank
lot of artists who don't handle social media well, but you are definitely not one of them.
Yeah, I was one of those people that I was like, I hate social media. It's a cancer. It's there's so much negativity, and I always avoided it. But going into this, I I never wanted to be that artist that was an idol or was above people and looking down on them and saying, you're my puppets and my peasants, and like I am this great person, much better than you. I want to be with the people. Like these are my community of people. Like I want there to be this feeling of like friendship, and like we're all just people in the end. Yes, like I make music and they listen to it, but without them, I'm nothing. Like, I mean, I can make music for myself, which is great too. But if I want to embrace this community and grow this community, I want it to be something to where it feels inclusive and it feels like a real relatable connection, not just for them, but for me too, to talk with these people and get to know them a little bit, even if, like you said, just a small emoji or comments here and there. I started to notice the same people are returning to the comments and they're in my DMs, and I try my best to get back to everyone. I'm not perfect. I'm human. I only have so much time. And I just go through and I try to answer as much as I can, even if it's a small, like, thank you and hearting their stories when they mention me. I want to be that person that stays humble as I grow, because I see so many vocalists, and I know, sorry, my dog's barking.
It's
I know
okay.
that it's so easy for all this success and the numbers and everything to get to your head, and then you suddenly are like too good to be amongst the people that have helped you get there. And I know that's like the thing I want to hold on to no matter what. If I fade out, if I get really big, whatever it is, I want to be true to what I believe in. And I believe that, all people deserve recognition and they deserve that kind of interaction, because in the end, social media is about relating to people and connecting with people. And that's exactly what I'm wanting to do with Daedric. It's more than just the music. It's connecting with people who have similar passions and interests, whether it's the music, whether it's the gaming, the stupid anime things that I do. Like I am so willing to nerd out if it means having a place for people to come to and say, I belong here and these are my people. That's what I want.
Well, I have to tell you, it's been quite impressive. I love watching the fan interaction on your Facebook page, on your Instagram. I've gone over to your TikTok, and I was like, "What on earth's going on here?" It was
It's
it was a
crazy.
lot of fun. It was crazy, but it was fun, kind of crazy,
Yeah.
and it was. I mean, dare I say the word wholesome, but it wasn't like, people associate, I think sometimes, the hard vocals and the screaming with vulgarity and
Yeah.
other things of you know, that aren't pleasant. But that's not the vibe I've gotten from you from at all. As a matter of fact, I've seen nothing but positivity and you trying to build this community that you've talked about, and it's a happy place. I
Yeah.
think, what is it? August Burn Red says, what is it? Angry music for happy people. You know?
No, I knew early on, because when I just first started Daedric, a lot of young kids, especially young girls, were looking up to me and reaching out to me and saying, I want to be like you when I grow up. And I immediately buckled down and said, I do not want to be someone who's a negative role model. I don't want them to look at me and say, I want to be like her and I'm filled with all this hate and I'm lashing out at people who, tell me negative things, or I didn't want to dress in a way that someone wouldn't want their daughter to dress. Like sometimes it toes the line a little bit because, I'm human, I'm a girl. But at the same time, like I just want to make sure that I'm keeping that balance of I'm true to who I am and I want to be a good person. And even when I get a lot of hate comments, by the way, and a lot of people, come at me making fun of my list or whatever it is that they can get, they say something. And I've promised myself to not retaliate and be like, oh well, oh yeah, well, you're whatever, finding something about them, whatever it is. I try my best to embrace it or joke back with them or do something that's like fun and silly, because a lot of times I found people that are projecting this hate, they really just want to connect with people too. And a lot of people have turned around and said, oh, I was just kidding, I'm sorry, like I actually really like your stuff. And it's just so shocking because that first comment, without any context, you're like, that is a mean thing to say. Like, why would you just say that to someone? But the truth is, a lot of these people, they also want, to connect with people. And when someone's willing to do that with them, you can change their heart, you can change their mind, and that's even more beautiful than starting out with just a hey, I love you. It's really special to me. I love it.
Wow. Wow, I mean, for me, I know that I would say anyone who has something negative to say, that's saying far more about them than it is about what they're talking about, right?
Yeah.
So I guess taking that a step further, you can turn that into something positive, and that's something to really celebrate, especially when building such a fan base uh, comprised of younger listeners. So we're going to get into your album. Uh, we're going to start with the video for the first track, which I am calling a straight punch to the face.
I'll
And
take
I
it.
mean that in the best way possible. I love my hard vocals. I love my metalcore. I love it. So we're gonna go ahead and do it. All right. This is the title track from Daedric's debut album. Here's Mortal.
Secrets and things that we bury in obsession, uncovered. It's blossoming, so casual. It's gradual, you will see.
Man, those hard vocals. It's a straight punch to your face. You come out the gate. First track on the album. Let's get into the track listing really quick and talk about why you chose that. Because that is the heaviest track on the album as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Why start with that?
I think it sets the tone for the album for me. It starts out with this feeling of rage, and you're just like, let out all the emotions. And I think anger and rage are such a pure emotion that it allows the landscape of the rest of the album to soak in, because you're starting off with this really intense emotion, and then it kind of goes like this throughout the album. And I think people are able to digest it in a way that just makes sense, because at first I think we were going to have it at the end of the album, but then it just, I don't know, it worked to have it in the beginning. And I wish I had a better answer for that, but I don't know. I feel like it really paves the way for the album.
I agree with you. I think that kicking out, I mean, just when it came out and I was like, all right, I'm gonna listen to it. I was so excited. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna listen to it from the beginning. And I hit play and I was like, wow, like it pulled no punches. I mean, and I love the ebb and flow of the track listing and how it does go to, the next track after that, I think is it Titan?
Yes.
Okay. It goes into Titan and then there's some softer tracks after that. And there's a beautiful wavelength there that I think is perfect. I think it's a beautiful composition, a beautiful body of work. I think you smashed it out of the park. There's a lot of people who would come out with a debut album that wouldn't sound nearly that great. So I'm glad that you had the courage to come out with that swinging for the fences. I think you did an incredible job. I want to talk about the video concept because you mentioned a little bit earlier, you touched on the Elder Scrolls. A lot of what you do is based on this. Can you please educate me and the public on what this is and how you've sort of built your brand, so to speak, around the concept of the Elder Scrolls?
Yes. So to set the stage, I have always been into gaming. RPGs were my favorite. I used to play games like RuneScape and anything fantasy I was super into. And when Skyrim came out, I was so obsessed with this game that I pirated it before it was available for Macs, because I only had a Mac at the time, not a PC, and it was only available for PC. And I played for 6 days straight when when I got it, and I ended up catching my computer on fire because I didn't stop. And since then, I've played it on various consoles from Xbox to the Switch to a PC itself, and each time it's been just as fun as the first time. And Skyrim is a part of the series of Elder Scrolls. And Elder Scrolls, you can think of it as kind of like Lord of the Rings, where you have different books and it all tells this bigger story. You can think of Skyrim as, let's say, like the Two Towers of Lord of the Rings, where it's this section of the narrative where you have a certain region they focus on, and there's some turmoil, there's some battles between the Stormcloaks and these Imperials, and it's like this huge war over the ownership of the land and the territories and all these things. And you're this person who is like the chosen one, because there's always a chosen one, right? And it's your duty to go and become the Dragonborn and get all the powers and eventually basically save the world from being ended. So you go through all these different quests and you choose your character, and it's just this really immersive game with its own universe. It's so detailed. Even now, I'm on my like fourth run through, and I'm not even close to exploring the entire land. There's so many things, like as you just walk, you discover new caves, new places, and quests just pop up constantly. So it's a game that can never end depending on how much you play it. And so taking that into my passion and love for music, I was, whenever Jeff approached me and was, like, let's do a project with Fixed, and they already had some people who kind of touched into the gaming world, and it was more of this synthwave electronic sound. He told me, you need to come up with a concept that's going to be your concept for the project, for the label, that makes sense within this sphere. So
No pressure.
I was like, hey, I love Elder Scrolls, and I had to educate him and Clay on what that was, and and basically nerd out. And they kind of looked at me like, wow, you are a big nerd. And I was like, okay, if I do this, I have to not be ashamed to just embrace the nerdiness and layer it into the music. And at the same time, I knew I didn't want to just literally take notes from Elder Scrolls lore and be like, here's my song. I wanted to make it personal and make it something that I truly related to. So what I would do is, as I'm pulling up the lore on the different Daedric princes to read about and really deep dive, because there's actually like a Skyrim wiki. You can go and read about very specific things and keep going. So I would do that and really read up on this Daedric prince more than I had known while playing the game. I would layer in my own personal life experiences, and I would basically build a character for each song, whether it was myself or someone I was, related to, or someone that was in my life that I would personify in the song. I would create this whole narrative that included the Skyrim lore, that included my own personal experience, and put them together in a way that was cohesive, that was still relatable to the average person who doesn't play Skyrim. But then the people that do play Skyrim see those little nuggets of reference to the princes and the names and just the little details, and they would be like, "Oh my God, like it's so cool that you talked about it." But then the regular people are not alienated and feeling out of place when listening to it.
Well, I didn't feel alienated, and I don't know anything about it.
Okay.
Yeah, right. I went to that wiki thing when I was before this interview. I was trying to find as much information as I could, and when I saw it, I immediately I looked at it and I was like, nope.
It's a
There is
lot.
no way for me to possibly digest all of this without playing the game or understanding the story behind it, and it would take me a year to read it all. I mean, it's that detailed. So
A
I
lot.
applaud you for being able to have the creative talent to be able to apply those stories to your own personal life and then make it be a cohesive body of work that people like me can understand
Yeah.
and and appreciate. um I have to wonder though, I mean, how many of these, I know Nern, right? Isn't Nern a place?
Yes. So once I did a few very specific Daedric princes, I wanted to broaden it a little bit. And so I think before we wrote Nern, we worked on Cold Harbor, which is like you can think of it as Hades or like the underworld. And we wanted to have a foil for that one, like a very like an opposite. And I thought, okay, the opposite of the underworld would be the above ground world, which is Nern, which is in Skyrim, Nirn is like this, harmonious and beautiful land. It's basically like you can think of like Gaia, right? You have the protectors, like the fairies that protect the earth and want to keep it sacred. So you have these things called Spriggans, which are tree nymphs that kind of like attack you if you invade their space because they want to protect the earth and Nirn. And there's all these little elements that tie into that of you can think of it as life and like Mother Earth. And I wanted to really encapsulate that into the song. And I also pulled in a small reference. I don't know if anyone would catch it, but I'm also a huge fan of Batman and the animated series especially. And Poison Ivy was always my favorite. And I kind of layered her into that because she is kind of this Gaia figure who's his mother that protects plants and green earth. And she's all into that. So I also did like a third layer of layering in my other love for villains and nerdy things basically.
I love this. So who's your favorite villain
Of all time?
yeah
Ooh, my favorite villain of all time. That's hard. It's a showdown between Mark Hamill as the Joker because he voiced the 1992 animated series and he has the best Joker voice and laugh, and this other character named Zuko from an anime series called Avatar: The Last Airbender.
I love that.
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
You know that.
okay, I'm gonna totally geek out. I love. Okay, Prince Zuko is the biggest. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love Avatar. Oh my gosh, this is so great.
Okay. They have a podcast now, by the way. It's like a kind of behind the scenes. It's hosted by Dante Basco, the voice of Zuko, and then the voice of Korra. And they talk to people about the show. They have the show creators on, and they kind of talk about how it was developed. It's super cool. You have to listen.
Well, they're getting ready to put a movie out.
Yeah, that too.
Right? Yeah,
A good
I'm
one.
so
A
excited.
good movie. We don't talk about the other one.
Let's not talk about the other one. That's bad. But getting back to your music. So, what in terms of the name Daedric? Then did you just get it from the Daedric princes? Did you take it just from there?
Yes. So it's funny when we were going through names, I knew I wanted something pretty easy to spell and hopefully easy to say, but I've learned that that's still not true. And I just wanted it to be something unique and recognizable, but also just look aesthetic. Like when you see it, you're like, oh, that sounds cool. I wanted it to be this androgynous sounding name that you wouldn't know if it was a girl or a boy or a group or a single person. I wanted it to be this nebulous thing. And it just, I don't know, phonetically, I like the name Daedric.
I like it too. It does sound cool. I do. I like it a lot. Okay. And so I've got a question for you that's a little bit off topic then. What is something that people wouldn't expect to find out about you?
Oh, there's a lot of things that I found
Dig
out that
into Kristen. Let's dig into Kristen.
yeah, I get asked this one a lot, which I find interesting, is what's my ethnicity? Because I know I look a little bit ambiguous, and especially, with the blonde hair versus my natural dark hair, it's a little bit harder. Most people assume I'm some mix of Latina and white somewhere there, but I'm actually half Filipino, which if you don't know where the Philippines is, it's right below Japan. So it's Pacific
My
Island.
uncle's married to a woman who's from the Philippines.
Oh, you probably have eaten the best food from her, I'm sure.
Maybe.
Yeah. So my mom's from the Philippines, and my dad is Greek and Swedish, and so that's the mix that I am. I'm like a little mutt, and I don't know. I'm weirdly proud of my nationalities because I love being able to trace specifically to each side to my mother's Filipino heritage and being able to see how far down the line we can get to, and hearing the stories of her growing up on those islands. And then on my dad's side, his grandparents came over here from their respective countries. So his father was grew up in Greece, and then moved over to the U.S. in the early 1900s during the times when Greeks and Poles and people from kind of the Eastern Europe, Mediterranean area were being discriminated against, and so that's really cool to hear about. And then also my grandma, she's from Sweden, and hearing that history and being able to see the family trees throughout all of those is just so incredible to me, because I'm seeing all the names and just thinking about all these people that got together, and they got together, and now I'm here, and it just feels like this weird fate. And I don't know, I find it so fascinating.
I agree with you. I'm a total geek on that myself. My daughter, actually, my mother is from Ukraine.
Oh,
So I'm a first generation American. My father grew up in Boston. Met my mom. And so when we look back at my mom's family tree, and I get to talk to my cousins in Sweden, in Belgium, um, we have family in Russia, and my father's family, we've traced all the way back to England. So
wow.
yeah, it's actually sort of really cool to go through all that, and then hearing about, like, my own grandparents in work camps during the World War and things like that, and how they left for America and all these things. And I'm sure, like, with your mom's family too, like trying to come from another country to the States to like create this life. And then here you are, and you're
Yeah.
doing what you love. And you're like, wow, look at all the people who sacrificed things for me to be able to feel comfortable and be happy and be free and do what I love without persecution.
Yeah, it
Powerful.
is incredible. Yeah, just sometimes even just my mom's story. She migrated here from the Philippines directly right after graduating college as a nurse. And so she came here for nursing. And her story of getting acclimated, she didn't know what air conditioning was or how to drive a car. She didn't know you had to have a license to drive a car. And back in the 80s, she was able to buy a car without a license and drive it. And then she called the dealership and was like, "Hey, how do you drive this car?" And they were like, "What?" She's like, "Yeah, I bought this car so I could get a license." And just like hearing those crazy stories, like she actually met Ted Bundy when she first moved here in the 80s, because she was
Stop
in
it.
and he was in Florida, and he tried to pick her up and give her a ride. And she was so naive and like, "Oh, this nice, charming, handsome man is going to give me a ride." And then these construction workers were like, "Don't go in the car with a stranger. That's not a good idea." And she's like, "Oh, I had no idea." So she told him no. And then later on the news, when all the court cases were happening and things, she's like, "Oh my gosh, I met that guy. He was so handsome." And then having no idea he was a serial killer. Like that kind of stuff just blows my mind. I'm like,
You
I
wouldn't be here.
wouldn't be here. That's the thing I think about. I'm like, I
He
wouldn't be.
got in the car.
It's one small decision, a yes and a no. It's crazy.
Wow. So many small decisions, though, have led to where you are right now. So,
Exactly.
wow. Thank you, Mom, for not getting in the car with Ted Bundy. This is such a better outcome, for everybody. I mean, my gosh. Wow, that's a story. Um, what are you do you like murder?
Oh, I don't condone murder.
No, I don't mean are you a fan of murdering people? I meant are you somebody who watches like Investigation Discovery? Do you watch, like Snapped on Oxygen? Do you follow things like that?
I watch here and there some Forensic Files, and I used to watch like the cold cases and some of those other, like, they were like Dateline kind of shows back in the day. And then I've kind of fallen off and jumped more into the like super fantasy, because sometimes when I get like I watch too much of the murder stuff, I start to get paranoid, and then everything in my life is like I'm gonna get murdered, even though I'm just here, I'm fine. I mean, yes, there's always a chance, but at the same time, I don't want to live in fear too much. So I'm like, I don't want to watch too much and then get obsessed.
Okay. And so what are you listening to right now? If we were to open up or do you listen to Spotify, Apple? Where do you normally go?
I listen on Spotify, and right now
That's
I
on your on repeat playlist.
yes, my on repeat right now is Zelda lo-fi. It's like, I don't know if you've ever listened to lo-fi music, but I call it 8-bit music versions of the full songs. So it's like very soft and easy listening. You can work while you're listening to it. It's kind of the background thing, but it makes me happy because it's recognizable songs from Zelda that are just playing, and I'm like, this is so nice and peaceful. There's no vocals though.
So you're instrumental.
Not always. I'm surprised because I used to think instrumental stuff was so boring. I'm like, where's the vocals? I want to hear vocals. But now I'm kind of diversifying, and I listen to pretty much every genre except country. I cannot listen to country. I just can't stand it. And I feel bad saying that because I'm in a state where country is really popular, but I'd much rather listen to like hip hop, R&B, pop, rap, whatever it is. Like, I'll listen to it. I'll at least try it and see if I like it.
I'm not a country fan either. I'm with you. Yeah, I
Okay.
can't do it.
It's
And
okay.
I live in Virginia. I'm in Virginia. So
Oh,
there's a lot of country music here. Certainly not as much as Texas, but it's still considered the South.
yeah.
So yeah, we've got some of that here too. Um, and what I gotta ask, I mean, you just dropped a new album and I really want to hear it live. Do you have any travel plans? Can we expect a tour? Is there anything coming that you can give the fans on when they might be able to see Daedric live?
Ooh, I wish I had a very solid answer to give. I know we want to make a tour or a show or whatever happen whenever it's the right time, whenever we're fully prepared with the full band. We have people for the full band, but it's a matter of when and where and how. And so I want to make sure that if we do join someone's tour, it's someone that makes sense with the sound, that we would be able to support each other sonically, and it wouldn't be this clash. Someone that's, way on the other end of the spectrum, and then we come on, and then the fans that are there are like, what is this? I hate this. And, they leave. I wouldn't want that. So I want to make sure it's right. I don't know. I want to make sure that we have enough of the materials. Obviously, we have the album now, but I would love to have just more to diversify it with. And we do have a live set that will go out with a deluxe album. I can tell you that. We recorded in a warehouse, and it was really, really hot because if you know anything about Texas, it has hot
Ugh,
summers. And it
triple
was,
digits.
but we got some really good, footage and audio in there, and I'm excited to release the live set so people can get at least a taste of what it might be like, because I'm there with the band. I'm, moving around and singing with, the full setup and everything like that. And so I hope that's enough to kind of tide people over until we're fully ready to take this, on the road and go places.
I'm excited to see. Do you have a booking agent?
I do not actually.
Huh? Hello, booking agents. Daedric does not have one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm open to all kinds of opportunities from people. Ultimately, I think it's something that, we'll consider whatever people bring our way. We've had a couple offers come through that we didn't feel was the right time, it was too soon, or we didn't feel that we meshed well with the sound. But, I wanna be ready to go as soon as possible.
I would love to see a tour where you are definitely opening up for it'd be great to see you on maybe some kind of a tour with other female fronted bands. Like perhaps if there was a Daedric, Conquer Divide, I don't know, tour. Trying to think of a third band that I think would mesh well with that.
A lot of people
Um,
say Spirit Box, which is I think is pretty similar too. They have that the
I,
dynamic soft and hard.
you know what? I would lose my mind if there was a Daedric Conquer Divide and Spirit Box tour, the Women of Rock tour, the Women of Metalcore tour, the women, just the women. That would
Yeah,
be great.
I'm a women in metal.
Yes, the women, just the Women in Metal tour. That would be amazing. So, Courtney LaPlante, if you're watching,
She's so awesome. It's so funny. Back when Spirit Box was first forming and they had just put out the Mara Effect and
Mhm.
their first EP, it was so funny. I forgot how I ended up connecting with her on Facebook and we were friends and we were chatting and she was sending me like early Spirit Box stuff and I was sending her my first project stuff and we were talking and it was just so cool to just talk to her and now like she's blown up and it's so amazing and I'm like wow, she worked so hard for this. She's been doing this forever. And obviously she's incredibly talented and she's just so cool. That's something that I've I really look up to her in that way that she was just so chill to talk to. She wasn't like, I'm this amazing vocalist and you must speak to me with whatever. No, she's just so awesome.
I think humility is a really important aspect of our humanity.
Yeah.
And no matter who you are, it's really important to talk to people with respect and with kindness. I don't care. At the end of the day, we're all going to use a bathroom. At
Yes.
the end of the day, we're all going to take our clothes off and get into bed. We're not any different.
Exactly.
So we're not valued by our achievements. At the end of the day, it's all about humanity. So I'm happy to hear that she carries that humility and that you have that connection with her. So
Yeah.
I've seen Spirit Box a bunch. Big fan. I've loved to see their growth over the past several years. I remember seeing them when they were an opener for somebody like a long time ago, and to see the presence evolve and see the tours get better and better and bigger and bigger, the audiences get bigger has been tremendous. And I'm really hoping that's going to be the same track for you because you've got the talent. And I'm just so happy that you were able to come on here and talk to us about it and share it. We love it here at The Sound. I keep playing you on my show. I love the album. I love your voice. I love it all. So I appreciate you hanging out with me. If people want to look for you, where can they find you?
I'm on pretty much every social, Instagram, Threads, X, Twitter. I don't know which one you call it now. Twitter, YouTube. I'm on there on TikTok, Facebook. I've kind of shied away from it, but I'm trying to embrace it a little more. It's just sometimes Facebook gets a little weird in terms of the way that it kind of displays, and sometimes I miss a lot of the messages on there. So I think Instagram is my hub where I feel everything can kind of flow into.
And you're everywhere at Daedric Official.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Kristen. I appreciate your time. And ladies and gentlemen, you can find my interview with Daedric in the October issue of the Sound 228 magazine. It will be in full digital and I will have it in print. So, again, thank you, Kristen. And you're watching The Sound.
Thank you for having me.